Hey everyone, welcome back to Coach Quip, episode 144. I'm Coach Robyn.
I'm Coach Chris, and today
it's all about the beginner's mind.
Today we're talking about the beginner's mind. So this is a concept that comes from Zen Buddhism. It's talking about the attitude of openness that people have and this eagerness to continue to learn more. So we thought about this, and I recently heard a great podcast episode of a professional bike racer talking about how they apply the beginner's mind. And it sort of made me think about my, well, not too recent, but feels like recent, experience of race walking. So I've been racing triathlon and duathlon, and Pablo here at Edge Athlete Lounge asked me if I wanted to race walk, and I thought it was ridiculous, and I was totally down to try it. So I, after doing a duathlon in April, dove right into race walk training, and I had no idea what this actually meant.
And it's totally different.
It is so different, but it was a totally different concept for me in terms of training, in terms of laying out a schedule, in terms of what I should physically be doing, and I was not good at it. And it was actually really cool to be a beginner again at something. Like, as an adult, when was the last time you were a beginner at something?
It's probably been a while.
Yeah, right.
Like learning to pickle or something that's like completely different, and I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah. So we can do that with hobbies, but in terms of sports, how are you cultivating a beginner's mind? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So here are 5 reasons why cultivating a beginner's mind is essential for endurance athletes. Starting off with number 1, embracing learning. So being a beginner means that you have to learn to get better, right?
Yeah.
So embracing learning at every part of your journey, whether it's in an individual training session or over the course of your training, having that beginner's mind helps you learn more and get better.
I love it too, because it's funny when we are like invested in a sport and someone brings up, like, say, talk about running, and someone's like, oh, my foot pod says this, right? You can so easily be like, oh my God, what's a foot pod? I should have known about that. Like, why didn't I know about that? I must not be a real runner. And if I'm not a real runner, what am I even doing here? And you snowball. But as a beginner, you're like, what's a foot pod? You just ask those questions just from a purely, wanting to absorb. And so there's no judgment on it. It's pretty like self-judgment, of course.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because the difference between being in the first 3 months of running and being, 3 or 30 years into running is like whether or not we'll ask those questions.
Yeah.
If there's always more to learn, because there are always new foot pods coming out.
Also true. You are not behind on anything. I often say, I'm like, our athletes are the ones that bring stuff to me because I'm in the dark. I'm like, all right, give it to me. What you got?
Yeah.
All right, second reason why cultivating a beginner's mindset is essential for all of you endurance athletes is resilience in the face of challenges. Beginner's mind and having that kind of learning mentality really helps us navigate challenges, being resilient. You see the obstacle as really an opportunity to grow rather than a roadblock. Again, if you're like further down the road, you're like, oh man, this was so hard. But instead it's like, how do I get around it? Mm-hmm. So looking at things like long rides or long runs and think like, what can I learn here versus, oh my gosh, am I going to execute it perfectly, is just a really wonderful way to encounter and overcome challenges.
And to like your sport more too.
Yeah.
All right, next up is staying present. So endurance sports are all about staying present, right? Like it requires a deep level of focus, particularly as we get into our longer races, but even I would say in some of the shorter events that we do, it's really essential for us to be where our feet are.
Yeah. I don't know. There's something really magical about swim, bike, run, cardio, exercise, because you can get into this true kind of rhythm. Mm-hmm. And I think as a beginner, when you find that for the first time, or even like established runners, when they start running on trail, they are just shocked at how staying truly present can be really healing. I think sometimes we think like it's going to somehow miss out on something else, but instead it gives them this almost like meditative purpose, and that is really, it's a really big boost for your sport in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is fostering creativity and innovation. So when you approach training with that beginner's mind, you open up a lot of space for being creative and being innovative. You're a lot more likely to experiment with training techniques, nutrition strategies, maybe mental conditioning, or figuring out, your way out of the box, which that can then lead to breakthroughs in performance. And it's fun because you discovered it. You're like, wow, I tried a chew instead of, my noon in a bottle. I used calories, and I felt amazing on my tempo run. And it's like, oh, light bulb moments, yeah.
And that's the difference between thinking that you know everything and being open to that change, or like trying to do things the way you've always done them, which is something that a lot of people who are more experienced can get stuck into. Like, I've always run 2 20-milers on my training cycle of my marathon, and I must do that even though I'm injured this cycle. And if we can be more adaptable, we can be more creative and innovative in our training. It's a benefit. The last one here is cultivating humility. So there is always more to learn and to grow, room to grow, and ways to improve as athletes and as people. So embracing that beginner's mind helps us cultivate that humility of just being like, yeah, I don't know everything. And there's a real freedom when you recognize that you don't know what you don't know, and that there is always space for us to learn more.
I love this one too when we think about athletes that are coming back post-surgery or post-time off or post, having a baby. This is another great opportunity to have that beginner's mindset, because I remember what Meg Porter said on the Strong Mom episode, where she said, like, let me see what this version of me can do. And that really stripped away what she was before, so that she could stand really on her own 2 feet and relearn her body and its strengths. And that was really, really freeing.
It's such a brilliant quote and idea. And it's not just, new parents, and it's not just people coming back from injury. Like, every one of us can take that mindset of being like, okay, so 2024 version of me is not the 2023 and not the COVID version and not the pre-COVID version. What can this version do this year?
All right, now we got some tips for cultivating a beginner's mind. First is let go of expectations. Approach your training sessions or your race with an open mind. So toe the line with an open mind. Let go of your expectations about outcomes or performance metrics. You are not entitled to anything.
Say it again now.
You are not entitled to anything. From The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Mason. I'm going to get another E. Did you see? When we did the Fuck It Bucket, I got the E.
Yeah, congratulations on your first E.
I got my E. But yeah, it's a big thing though. Like, if we let go of those expectations, a lot of times, not only do we enjoy it a lot more, but we end up achieving the very thing that we were feeling entitled to anyway.
So give less fucks.
Yes.
For going for the E.
It's definitely there now.
Tip number 2 is to be curious. So approach your training with a sense of curiosity, ask questions, and don't be afraid to not know the answers. When you're looking for the why behind your training, the why of reasons, the way the outcomes are landing, that's when you open up new breakthroughs.
Number 3 is to stay present. Be where your feet are, right? Don't be thinking outside your box. Practice mindfulness techniques like deep breathing or visualization, or just stay present and focus during your sessions, and that will really help you troubleshoot, stay curious, all of those other things. It tends to open the other doors.
If you're having a hard time doing that, maybe unplug the music for a run and see how that goes. Because
that's scary.
It can be super scary for some people, but it is a different sense of presence when you have your tunes or story versus you having yourself, and that can really help you drop into that. Number 4 is to embrace setbacks as opportunities. So instead of viewing setbacks as failures, see them as ways for you to learn and grow.
Number 5, celebrate small victories. So acknowledge and celebrate really the things that you're doing right along the way, whether it's completing a challenging workout or achieving a personal best. We have an athlete right now that every time he gets off the bike, he's doing a 1 mile brick. He keeps PRing his 1 mile brick. And it's like, it's 1 mile, but he's like so jazzed about it. That's a big deal. It's his first time trying this distance. You can always measure success in as many ways as possible. And we are going to deep dive into that topic. I love that. Measure success as many ways as possible. That's going to be episode 145 right after this one. So, maybe you should subscribe right now. Hit that subscribe button, and then you'll get notified when it comes out next Monday.
That was a good plug. Nice job. And the last way to cultivate a beginner's mind on this list of tips, not the ultimate last, but try something new. So if you are unsure of how to cultivate that beginner's mind, be a beginner. Like, truly put yourself in a position to be a beginner. Pick up a new hobby, try to learn something new, and see how that feels. Just sitting with the knowledge that you actually don't know everything about something can be really freeing and open you up in other parts of your life. All right, so to recap, embracing the beginner's mind is not just a philosophical Zen Buddhist concept. It's really something practical that you can apply to your training and your racing and to your daily life. It can help with greater fulfillment in your activities, as well as resilience and performance, specifically in your endurance athletic pursuits.
And by cultivating that openness, curiosity, and really humility, athletes can totally unlock their full potential and embark on the journey of continuous growth and self-discovery until you're 80 years old plus, because that's the goal.
Love it. So tag us in your posts about your new pursuits or questions that you have as you practice your beginner's mind.
Later.
Thanks for listening to Coach Quip, original music performed by Mend. Follow us online on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Edge Athlete Lounge. Our podcast lives in the blog section of our website. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and you can check out the show notes for additional ways to contact us. Ready, set, onward we go.